All right, welcome back. Brian McKnight wins imaginary $8.8 million versus ex-wife. He gets petty on his late son's birthday. There are some moments in life when you look at a story and think, this can't be real. You can't make this shit up either, right? But then it is. And in that moment, you realize how deeply pain can twist a person who hasn't healed. Brian McKnight, the same R&B legend whose songs used to soundtrack wedding dances, and love letters, is now trending for one of the saddest reasons imaginable. Not because of new music, not because of a comeback, but because of a feud with his own family that's playing out like emotional crime scene on social media. He posted a video, cigar in hand, smiling, saying, "The verdict is in. According to the courts, trying to ruin my name and bring harm to my family in a book filled with lies equals $8.8 million. Then in that same video, while celebrating this so-called victory, he plays an old voicemail allegedly from his ex-wife over a clip of him skipping and laughing. The voicemail was serious, painful, a mother's voice saying, "Do not call Nico again." And Nico, their son, is gone. He passed away from cancer this year. The video was posted on what would have been his birthday. Now let's pause there, because that's not entertainment. That's not even shade. That's pain weaponized. And pain weaponized against your own blood always comes back home. Brian McKnight has filed a defamation suit against his ex-wife, Julie McKnight, claiming her book, Mama Bear Beautifully Blended, his name of the book, was full of lies, accusations and abuse, neglect, emotional harm. She didn't appear in court, so he moved for a default judgment. Technically, it's not yet an official win, but emotionally, he's already declared victory. And that's what I want us to talk about today. Not gossip, never, right? But the psychology of that kind of victory, because sometimes what looks like winning is really losing in slow motion. Let's call this what it is. This is a man still bleeding from something that happened years ago. He's not a victim, by the way. I'm not saying he's a victim. A man who built his career teaching the world how to love through music, now publicly showing the world how it looks like to lose emotional control. Because we go further. Let's do a moral line. Mocking your ex-wife in the middle of a legal battle. Not illegal, right? Not wrong. But not necessarily, but referencing is emotionally cruel. Celebrating the pain of someone who once shared your home, your children, your story. That's not strength. That's spiritual fracture. And yet, I'll say this too. He's not a monster. That's not what I'm saying here. He's a man who hasn't healed. He's not a victim. I'm not saying that either. And that's exactly why this conversation matters. Because when you don't deal with heartbreak, betrayal, loss, when you don't grieve properly, you start living in retaliation mode. You become the kind of person who confuses revenge for recovery. You tell yourself you're setting the record straight, but really you're just screaming through the cracks of your own reflection. Brian McKnight is not the only one doing this. Every day, people go online to post things like, "I'm living my best life," when in reality, they are living their most defensive life. It's not peace, it's performance. Now, I've seen people defend him, saying he has the right to clear his name. His ex-wife talked about him publicly too. And yes, legally speaking, you might be right. Everyone has the right to defend themselves. But power, especially emotional power, isn't about who can do something. It's about who shouldn't. Yeah. When you've been married, raised kids, shared a life, your words don't just land on your ex. They land on your children. We know he doesn't like the children, including the one that passed away. He was at odds with them. And right now, the junior, Brian Jr., went online and he said, "I've tried to stay quiet." He's getting exhausted. He's tried to be the bigger person, but see my dad, and I quote, "See my dad make that post on my late brother's birthday, that's too much." He called his father petty, emotionally unavailable, and said something that broke my heart. "You don't want me to start talking about what we went through, the things we'll take to our graves." He said the things my brother took to his grave. Crazy, right? That's not rebellion, that's grief. That's a son who is still trying to find closure while his father is trying to prove a point. And this is where the emotional intelligence lesson comes in. When you start fighting to win against someone you used to love, there's no real victory. You might get the money, the judgment, the followers, but you lose the trust of your children. Yes, still your children, the peace of your mind, even the children you're raising. And you lose the legacy of your name. Men, listen closely. You can't build manhood on spite. You can't lead your home while living in bitterness. Even when you've been wronged, you must lead with restraint. That's where your strength shows. It's not easy. It's easier said than done. It's not soft, but it's necessary because emotional control isn't weakness, it's wisdom. What we are seeing in Brad McKnight is a textbook case of emotional regression. When pain becomes your identity, you start performing anger instead of processing it. You start mistaking shock value for closure. And this is why I always say self-awareness is the highest form of revenge. Healing is the only clapback that lasts. Let's talk about Julie. Julie's ex-wife might be guilty of saying some things in her book that weren't accurate. She might have her own flaws, her own narrative, her own wounds, maybe her own story. But the prestige take here isn't about picking sides ever. It's about accountability to self. Brian is in a position of power. He's the one talking now, right? Socially, financially, emotionally. That means the responsibility to lead with maturity is heavier on him. When you've got that platform, you have to use it to model healing, not hostility. Think about it. Your son just lost his brother. You just lost your son. He's watching you online, laughing, smoking cigars, playing voicemails of his mother and calling that a victory. What does that teach anyone about grief, about manhood, about love? There's a reason why hurt people keep hurting people. It's because they mistake movement for progress. You can move fast and still go nowhere. You can lose busy. Let's just slow down, okay? It's a lot. Brian McKnight's situation is a mirror for many. You may not have millions, you may not have lawsuits, but if you're still trying to show your ex that you've moved on, you're still living in reaction to them. You're still tethered. And trust me, there's no peace in proving. There's only peace in releasing. And there's no peace for the wicked. I think somewhere deep down, Brian still loves the idea of what his first family represented, even if he's buried that love under layers of pride and pain. And that's what happens when people don't confront their grief. They just redirect it. They just try to bury it, and it still comes back up, right? He's hurting himself, trying to hurt someone else. That's the self-destruction disguised as defense. Now, to everyone watching, I'll say this: don't let your pride turn you into your own enemy. It's okay to feel wronged, but you have to ask yourself, is this reaction helping me heal, or is it helping me hide? Because that's the thin line between dignity and damage. If you ever find yourself celebrating someone else's loss, especially someone you once shared life with, pause. Ask yourself, what wound am I protecting? Because joy built on another person's pain always has an expiration date, right? Brian may have won $8.8 million on paper, but emotionally he's losing something priceless: the trust and respect of his family. And unless he confronts that, this victory will age like milk. So here's the real takeaway: pain doesn't justify pettiness. Healing doesn't happen through humiliation. You don't rebuild legacy by breaking empathy. Forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for your own peace. Anyone going through a breakup, a divorce, or family conflict, please don't use your wounds as weapons. You end up hurting the people who actually still love you, including yourself. Brian McKnight once sang, "Back at one, back at one." That's what he needs right now. Maybe to go back to one, back to reflection, back to grace, back to humanity, because in the end, power is not about winning arguments. It's about managing your emotions when you could easily destroy someone, including yourself, and choosing not to. So, what do you think? Is Brian McKnight just fighting to reclaim his dignity, or has he completely lost sight of what truly matters? I'll be right back. This is Ola, man of prestige, your favorite relationship and marriage coach. If you enjoyed this, smash that like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Be a part of the Prestige family. My wife Lola and I have written 2 powerful books, Get My Marriage Back and Number One Red Flag. Yours free at manofprestige.com. For personal coaching, send me a WhatsApp request for consultation to +1 732 305 8577. Stay tuned for more. Your journey to love and prestige starts here.